We are now just a few weeks away from the big one. Canelo Alvarez will be defending his undisputed super middleweight titles against Terence "Bud" Crawford. And this fight seems to be as 50-50 as it can get, where both men seem to have clear advantages and disadvantages. So in today's video, we're going to go through all the information and see if we can pick a winner. Let's get into it. So let's set the scene here. Canelo Alvarez is 35 years old and has a record of 63-2. And naturally, he fights around the super middleweight division, although he has gone up and down before. Terence Crawford is 37 years old and is undefeated with a record of 41-0. 31 of those wins are by knockout, so he's a bit of a knockout artist. And Terence Crawford has fought all the way from lightweight to super welterweight, and now he's going up 2 more weight classes to fight Canelo at super middleweight. So upon hearing that, naturally you'd want to favour the younger guy who's had more in-ring experience and is in his natural weight class. However, the sport of boxing takes a lot out of you, and from Canelo's last few performances, we are quite easily able to tell that he is slowing down quite a bit. I'm expecting Terence Crawford to be the fresher fighter in this matchup, because if you look at the number of rounds these two have actually competed, Canelo Alvarez has completed 520 rounds in his professional career, whereas Terence Crawford has completed less than half of that with 245 rounds. This is not just due to the fact that Crawford has had 20 less fights than Canelo, it's also due to the fact that he has finished a lot of these fights in the distance. This would have given Crawford the opportunity to be fresher and better maintained throughout his career. So then if you consider that, yes, he's a bit older, but you'd want to give this fight to Crawford, but then you need to consider the weight disadvantage that he's going to have. Terence Crawford has already gone up in weight a lot throughout his career, and now he's going up 2 more weight classes to fight Canelo. And in his last fight, we saw him struggle a little bit against Israel Madjamov. You could see in that fight, Madjamov was the bigger guy, but he also had good footwork, and Crawford needed some time to adjust to that style. And while he did win, it was not as clinical of a win as some people may have wanted. In that fight though, Crawford was still able to demonstrate that he had fast hands and power. And throughout Terence Crawford's career, he has been able to demonstrate that the power does translate up to different weight classes with his performances against Kell Brook and Errol Spence. On the other hand, we have seen the 520 rounds from Canelo take their effect. In his last few fights, we have seen him significantly slower than he has been in his past. He's not a prime Canelo anymore. And his last fight against William Skull is the perfect example of that. Now, this fight not being very good was due to multiple things. It was not just the fact that he's not in his prime anymore. Canelo Alvarez is known for being a very high level counter puncher, and he likes to optimize his gas tank to fight just above the pace of his opponent. So when you have someone who is also a counterpuncher and is moving around on the back foot, not giving you a lot to work with, that will lead to a boring fight. However, in my opinion, I still don't think Canelo was doing enough to cut the ring and put real pressure on Skull. And we've also seen in the past, when someone puts a bit too much pressure on Canelo, he can tend to slow down a bit. We saw him struggle against Triple G, and we even saw him lose a few years ago against Dimitri Bivol. Canelo is at his best when he's walking you down, making you miss, and then making you pay. So in my opinion, the reasonable game plan for Terence Crawford is to walk down Canelo, put the pressure on him, because we know that if you put pressure on Canelo, he will try and counter, he will throw a lot of punches, and if you can defend them, then eventually later on in the fight, he will run out of gas, and you'll really be able to put the pressure on then and start landing combinations. So when that happens, Canelo will have to rely on his elite level head movement and defense, but when he throws his counters, they will have to land big. And while we've seen Canelo struggle to put people away in the last few years, it's very possible that the weight advantage he has against Terence Crawford will have a significant impact, helping him to land heavy shots that will do a lot of damage that they probably wouldn't have done to a natural super middleweight. And honestly, I could talk about the strengths and weaknesses of these fighters like this all day, and that's what makes this fight so interesting. As I've just listed, one guy will have a strength that's undercut by a weakness that the other guy is really good at punishing and exposing, and that is why the boxing world is so intrigued by this fight. Outside of the fact that it is two of the pound for pound best that we didn't think we'd ever really see fight each other. So then, if you're going to pick a winner for this fight, it really depends on what traits, what strengths, what weaknesses do you think are more or less important. And in my opinion, I just can't get past the fact that Canelo has looked as slow as he has in his last few fights. And while the fact that he is a natural super middleweight is good, it's also out in the public that Crawford was able to rehydrate to 169 pounds for his fight against Madrimov. So his natural weight for that fight was a pound above what this one is scheduled to take place at. Which then makes me think that one of Crawford's biggest weaknesses in this discussion is not as big of a weakness as we really think it is. Plus the fact that Crawford will have a height advantage, as Canelo is not that big of a super middleweight. And then you consider the style matchup, the fact that Crawford has had so many knockouts in his career, the fact that he's fresher, the fact that he is a switch hitter, come forward fighter that Canelo has historically struggled against. Yes, he's the older guy. Yes, he's having to come up 2 more weight classes. But I still think the undefeated Terence Crawford will stay undefeated. I don't think it will be a blowout, and I don't think he will win by knockout, but I do think this will be a boxing masterclass from Terence Crawford, who's going to become undisputed super middleweight champion on the biggest stage of them all, against the most credible opponent you could possibly get. Yes, he's out of his prime, but he is still Canelo, and the boxing IQ is still very much there. So that's my opinion on this fight. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.